As Professor Sinha explained the reasons why this commission was set up, um, and as she was explaining, it's quite curious that the commission has prejudged the issue and has actually arrived at a conclusion that the children at Shaheen Bagh are actually traumatized merely on the basis of the receipt of an anonymous complaint. It's a very easy thing to allege against children or against protesters. What is really happening is that the views of the parents, they are being confused with the views of the children. And the views of the children are not, they haven't even been spoken with to at all. They have not sought the views of the children at all to understand or to allay their fears as why their children are feeling vulnerable at all. The fact is that if there is a child who feels or has spoken out that he feels vulnerable, it's important for the commission to understand why that statement is being made by a child, instead of jumping to the conclusion that this child is under trauma or is distressed. The children are there merely because of a practical reason. The practical reason, as I understand, is that the parents are sitting there in protest. As an individual, I have a right to protest, which may or may not be the views of the child as well. But today I have no place to leave my child when I'm sitting at the protest. It's okay for the child to sit outside a locked house and he's comfortable, the child is comfortable there, but the child is not comfortable in the lap of the parents sitting there who are sitting at the protest site. It's quite unimaginable how a child is going to feel traumatized sitting in the lap of their parents, but will not feel traumatized coming home to an empty locked house. But what is happening is that you're simply saying, look, I don't care what the children are saying, you're not supposed to be there. Why? They're not able to satisfy. If the NCPCR is, curiously, it's not raising any voices about children being beaten up by police personnel or otherwise. There they conveniently keep mum, which is very, I would say that is traumatic. But here, when they are seeing, at least prima facie, visually, the children are absolutely comfortable in the laps of the parents or around their parents, and then they feel that the children are traumatized. There is no logical reasoning being given by the commission for that. When a child is entitled to receive information, are we not trusting the child also to make up its own mind? The child may or may not disagree or agree with me, but we have to give the child that information, what I feel. They're trying to stifle the voice or the thoughts of the children merely because the commission's views and my views do not match. We are a non-entity in the larger scheme of things. What is important is the welfare of the child. You are not listening to the child at all. When you're not hearing the child's views, on what basis are you going to decide whether the child is distressed or traumatized? How do you counter the welfare of the child with your actions? I think we all realize that it is a ploy to stifle the parents' voice as against and using the child, my child, as a bait. But I mean, it's pretty distressing how the commission is functioning then. The Constitution also guarantees certain more rights to children. For example, if there's a juvenile offender, for the same act, I as a major would not get the same punishment as a juvenile. So obviously there is something more there. There is a perfectly logical reasoning behind that. And because of those reasons, you're looking at the welfare of the child, right? Now, when you're looking at the welfare of the child on the basis of the constitutional framework, the various charters that India has signed, the UN charters, the Rights of Child Charter, and there are several guidelines. What is unfortunate is that the NCPCR is not following its own guidelines. When there is a clear-cut guideline that the Commission will interfere where children are being beaten up, it's surprising that the Commission is staying conveniently quiet.